Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, with all the horrible things happening in the world in this day and age, it really all does come down to perspective sometimes. And you know what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, enlightened and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are listening, keep listening. Hit subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. Plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over to our In the Seats YouTube channel, so you can give us a like and subscribe there as well. We'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, the Threads, the Tumblr, we're in a lot of places. I lose track. But at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates, and finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we're getting a little intense. It's for a film that's playing in select theaters on the East Coast, but it is opening in Los Angeles today, the 4th, as you listen to this podcast, or the 3rd, excuse me, the 3rd. The curse of staying up too late and recording. But it's called I Am Gitmo, and it's from writer-director Phillippe Diaz, and it's the story of a Muslim schoolteacher who is taken to a CIA black site in the Guantanamo Bay Cuba, where he is interrogated and tortured despite professing his innocence. It's really an interesting story because, I mean, obviously we've seen variations on the theme before, but it gives us the other side of the coin. It gives us the other perspective, the other POV, as it were. And it's really quite well done for a film that basically was shot on little to no budget. It's got some wonderful cast in it, and I mean, it's really, again, they did a very good job with it in giving audiences the alternative perspective, which, you know, isn't always the popular one, but occasionally it's the accurate one. And it's one of those things that, I mean, in this day and age, as we've got strife and problems all around the world, it's just yet another call and a reminder to keep our eyes open on all fronts as best we can. But in advance of the film rolling out in various theaters, like I said, it is playing in Los Angeles today, so if you're on the West Coast, please go check it out. But we had the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with Phillipe about the origins of the story, making the film, and so very much more. But like I said, go see I Am Gitmo, which, like I said, it is playing on the East Coast now, but it's playing Los Angeles today. But first, enjoy our talk with Phillipe, because between you and me, it's a pretty darn good one. All right, now, I mean, I guess just to kick this off officially, obviously, first off, thank you so much for the time today and being here, and congratulations on the film. It's a powerful piece of work. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Now, I mean, I guess my first question is, walk me through, I mean, I guess the origin of the story. Like, were these, like, what made you want to tell it, especially from this lens?
Yeah, I can tell you I started to be interested. I'm a filmmaker, of course, so I'm always looking for interesting stories. But the first thing was when we started to hear about the US torturing people in Guantanamo Bay. At the beginning, everybody just threw that out saying, oh, that's conspiracy. The US doesn't do that. There's no torture allowed in any law signed by the United States, whatever. And I think the first shock was when I read Mohammed Slahi book, Guantanamo Diary, and where he detailed, like, it's a 300 pages book where he detailed on a daily basis what happened to him in Guantanamo. And I could not stop the book because so that's absolute insanity. So I started to look at all the transcript of trials of detainees. I started to look at all the interviews with the lawyers, with inmate, of course, translators, even soldiers, because even some soldiers could not stand what was going on there, and they started to denounce what was going on there. And I thought it was the most insane thing I ever saw, because what happened is that Donald Rumsfeld, after 9/11, with George Bush and Dick Cheney, had this wonderful idea, which was, let's print millions of leaflets saying, bring me a terrorist who will give you a lot of money. And they throw these millions of leaflets all over Afghanistan. So, of course, everybody started to, they were offering between $2,000 and $20,000 per person turned in. So, of course, there it's a gigantic amount of money. It's years and years of income. So everybody started to turn anybody in, the neighbor, the this, the that, whatever. And the worst part of it is that the CIA never checked on the guilt of these people. They put them immediately through interrogation. Where is bin Laden? And the guy said, who? They didn't even know who bin Laden was. Oh, you don't want to talk? Torture. And that happened first in what we call the CIA black sites, where people were rendered. That's the extreme rendition program. Were sent to secret sites so they could be tortured anyway the U.S. decided, and some died under torture in these sites. And the one they thought had information they didn't want to reveal, sent to Guantanamo. And 800 men went there and went through anywhere from years, 5, 10 years, or even 20 years of torture to get them to talk. So that was, I think, enough to push me to decide to make a movie about that, because it was absolute insanity. So I even tried to buy the rights of Mohamedou's whole slightly book, but it was bought, as you know, and it became the Mauritanian with Jodie Foster and all that.
Right.
And that was also another shock for me, which pushed me to do the film. When I read the screenplay, I was able to get a copy of the screenplay, and it fell from my hands, because Mohamedou is detailing in 300 pages the torture on a daily basis. In the Mauritanian, there is a little montage of maybe 2 minutes of torture, and the rest is Guantanamo seems pretty cool. The interrogators are super nice people, and they crack jokes with the detainees. And he plays, soccer in the courtyard with other detainees. And of course, there is always the white hero who saved the day. It's not Wayne anymore, it's Jodie Foster in that case. And it's true, the lawyer, of course, got him out of jail. But that was not the point of the book. The book was to detail the torture that he went through, which is illegal by any standard international law, convention signed by the US, even internal law, American law. It's why soldiers revolted, and there was many trials that were won, against the use of torture.
No, 100%. And I mean, it's the dynamic between Sammy and Eric and their characters, and just sort of this growing realization that they are stuck in this machine that is ultimately pointless. And I mean, to see them both sort of play that and play off of each other is really a fantastic dynamic. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, walk me through a little bit about just finding the right people for the right roles, because I mean, again, there's so many layers to this story that you need someone who can sort of convey just, again, the insanity, like you said.
Yeah, I needed, I created the character of John Anderson, the interrogator, because I needed someone who would doubt. So I created, it's of course, it's inspired by all the people who were there who doubted, like the soldiers and the interrogators and this and that. But, I wanted a character who doubt. It's why I created this dilemma with his daughter. He's the professional interrogator, did that all his life, but never had to use torture. And so for him, it's like, when he's taught that he will have to use torture this time, he said, what are you talking about? The US doesn't use torture. It's in every manual and in every rules that we have. And well, that's a different set of rules now. Now you will have to use torture. Like, for example, it's why also I put this character like Geoffrey Miller, who was the head of Guantanamo at the time. He's a real character. It was really Geoffrey Miller, and that's his name, who was the head of Guantanamo at the time, who created with the Bush and Cheney administration this new enhanced rule, enhanced technique of torture and of interrogation. and he's, when after that he did all his thing in Guantanamo, he was rewarded by being assigned to Abu Ghraib prison, in Iraq. And that's where, you remember there was all these scandals of the soldiers posing with naked bodies of inmates and so on and so forth. That was under him as well. And when he was retired with a major award naming him as an innovator. It's like, seriously? What are we talking about? We're talking about America torturing innocent men by the hundreds. It's not one or two bad guys, whatever mistake. By the hundreds. It was a systemic thing. All these guys would go through torture, even if we could not charge them with anything. 85% of the inmates in Guantanamo were never charged with anything. And so the worst part now, which is also important, and it's why we are working very hard with the people who have been involved. For example, we have a great support in Fionnuala Nia Olin, who is the UN rapporteur of human rights, who wrote this damning report on Guantanamo. She was the only one authorized to go to Guantanamo, and she wrote this damning report on the abuse of detainees and the use of torture, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, she had I had a long talk with her, and she said, look, the problem of Guantanamo taught me the limit of the law, the limit of the legal system, because we brought many trials. We won many trials. Did it change one thing in the US policy against with torture? No, zero. And the worst part, and it's why we're working together to bring attention to that too, is that all the ones who were released, because there are hundreds who have been released, of course, no charge for 10 or 20 years, they have to get released at some point. They are not sent back to their own country where they can try to restart a life. They are sent back to other countries without any money and without an ID. They were stripped from their IDs, and so they have no money, no IDs, and left by themselves. So it's like, seriously?
Yeah.
How is that possible? So that's why we want to attract attention to that as well, because these men need reparation to at least try to be able to start a new life, So, and that's because anyway. So I think the Guantanamo story is total insanity from A to Z, and even today, the fact that there are still 30 men there continue the same insanity.
Well, and it's just sort of that collective shared insanity, because I mean there are two moments that really stood out for me early on with the John Anderson character, just going like, listen, torture doesn't work. Eventually they're just going to tell us something to make us stop.
Exactly. You know that most of these men under torture, just to make it stop, sign anything they wanted to say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bin Laden is there in the mountain, and so everybody was happy. See, he was a terrorist, he signed. What is the information that he gave? Nothing, of course, because he doesn't know anything. But that's okay, as long as he signed, we're good. And
no, and I mean it's not only that. It's just another point that the film brings up is that America is like, why are you in a jihad against us? What did we do? But this whole thing that America is doing is a jihad of their own, and just sort of how the table has turned, and it really does highlight this entire film, just sort of the mass insanity of it all. And I mean, and again, it's not as much as there are bad guys and there are good guys and people doing wrong and people doing good. It's just this machine that just has been set in motion and could not and cannot stop. And it's like, oh, we don't care if they tell us the truth or not. We just have to go torture them. That to me is
absolutely
the biggest highlight of seeing the story come out. It's like, we don't care if we get the good info. We just want info.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I don't know how to describe it better than to say it's pure insanity from A to Z. It makes no sense, no legal sense, no political sense, no sense anywhere, just to show that America is the strong guy again. We have known that for a long, long time, so we don't need to hear that again, but that's only what it serves. America is strong. We got all the terrorists. They are the worst of the worst. We put them in Guantanamo. And why Guantanamo? It's also interesting to always remember that we put them in Guantanamo. Why? Because it's an American base, but on a foreign island. So as such, the law of Cuba, of course, doesn't apply because it's an American base. And the US law doesn't apply because it's in foreign land. So all good. People can die, and as I said, many died under torture. Doesn't matter. Who cares?
How was it for, particularly for Sammy, just in this role? Because obviously Gamel, I mean, this character of Gamel has to sort of, he has to maintain his dignity. He has to maintain his moral code while in the face of all this horrific things that are being done to him.
Absolutely. And you know what was important for me, because I know you talk about the characters. I think that what was important to me is to not have a bad guy. Apart from General Miller, who was running the show, that's fine. But nobody is bad. It's why I didn't want a John Anderson to be a bad interrogator, whatever. He's doing what he's told to do, and he's told that they are the worst of the worst terrorists. You know, that this guy has information, etc., etc. But for Sammy, it was very hard. But I'll tell you, because I did a casting, of course, you know, a major casting, where I met, like, I want to say dozens of Arab American actors. And of course, I gave them the screenplay, and I gave them scene to read and work and so on and so forth. And Sammy was the only one who got it right. You know, like he understand immediately what it was about. All the others, I think, were making me major drama. I started to cry and this and then. I said, no, it's not about, you know, whatever. You know, so Sammy got it right immediately. He understood immediately what it was about. He was right on target from the first audition. And I was like, oh, wow. So, you know, so it was a very, very hard show for him, of course, because he had to put in his mind every day. And, you know, unfortunately, because we had an extremely low budget, and we shot in 4 weeks. So everything was all over the place. There was no real, so every day he would have to put himself in a mind that he was not even the day before, but he would be a week after or whatever. You know, so it was very, very hard. But he was, you know, that what I love with Sammy is that he's so involved in what he does. I can tell you, when he cries in the movie, that's real tears. It was not fake tears. He really cried twice. One he's in the box for the mock execution, and another time when he read the real letter from his wife, he really cried. And all his emotions are really right there outside of his skin, you know, in a way. And it's why I love to work with him, because he was wonderful, you know, for that. And the Eric Pierpoint, who plays John, he was also great, because he was so much involved as well. You know, he prepared so much about what it is for a guy like that to deal with terrorists, what his religious side, he prepared on that, he prepared on everything. So both of them, when they were coming on the set, they were right on target. I had very little correction to give them. We rehearsed, of course, and we worked a lot and talked a lot and whatever, like any movie, but they were so much on target that it was a true pleasure to work with them, no question.
Well, I mean, that's what makes this so interesting, because, I mean, obviously, a story like this, and I mean, you know, it says, you know, on the poster, based on true events. Obviously, you've got to sort of ride a line to a certain degree, but at the same time, it's one of those things where this could have steered into hyperbole or to politics or to, and I mean, and while it does that a little bit, it really feels like it's a call to the audience to go, hey, this actually fucking happened. Let's not forget that this insanity happened.
Yeah. That's what we feel, is that, you know, it's clear that, because as the UN rapporteur says, you know, legal means don't really work. We have to convince people by other ways, because today, ask outside. Most people think Guantanamo is gone, long closed, everybody has been freed, and number two, they were all terrorists. And you say, okay, so of course there was a major propaganda machine by the US to put that out, and it worked very well. So now we have to bring it by all other means, which is the emotional mean. You know, we have to, it's why, you know, I always wanted to make the audience feel what it is, you know, to be the guy under the hood, what it is to be beaten without knowing what it is to, etc., etc. Because I want people, and, you know, I had a great reaction from Karen Greenberg, who wrote a great book. She's a law professor at Fordham University, and she has been working on international laws all her life, and she wrote a great book on Guantanamo. But she says, look, the problem is that everything that I did was theoretical, based on the law and this and that. When I saw the movie, I cried, because to have it on an emotional level is a totally different story. You know,
no, 100%.
The same thing. Like Fionnuala, the UN rapporteur, said, you know, she watched Mohamed Slahi movie once by herself, and she, of course, she liked it and this and that. And she watched it another time at the UN with Mohamedou sitting next to her. She said, I could not watch it. I could not watch it because there was the emotional side, knowing that what happened to this man who was sitting next to me. And that's a total different story. And that's what I hope the film does. It brings the emotional level and the human connection.
Well, I mean, Phillipe, I think what you and Sammy and Eric and everyone have done here is that, because I mean, again,
Thank you.
I'm forgetting the exact quote, but I mean, this is one of those things that reminds me of just the realities that we can never forget history. As much as we can sort of nitpick and want to prosecute and blame and point fingers, that's one thing, but we can never forget what actually happened, to at least try to make sure that this crazy, stupid shit does not happen again.
It's exactly the point. Yeah. You got it.
Phillipe, just again,
100%.
thank you for the work, man, and thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this.
My pleasure. Thanks for your support.
You're very welcome.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.